all out to say he's speaking for the people of Mount Kenya. He says those who are interested in impeaching him, he dares them to start that particular process. And also Raila Odinga says, by the way, I did come to the rescue of the current head of state, and that is President William Ruto. A lot of stuff happening from the political front that seems to be shaping the 2027 election. We'll be getting into that and the details of that in our conversation later on the State of the Nation. We'll be having a panel here in studio sitting with me to make sense of the events in this particular country. And also on the dailies, taking a look at some of the stories that are making headlines and what you are waking up to. Of course, we'll be updating you with that, or bringing you up to date with that as we continue with this particular program. But first, we want to take you through the dailies today, and that is the stories that have been making headlines here in the country. And of course, just tell you, as far as stories are concerned, what is it that has been making headlines, what you're waking up to, and as the day progresses, what exactly should you be expecting as far as news is concerned. My name is Brian Amuai. Engage us on our socials at Amuai Brian, that is on X at K24TV. The hashtag we're using this morning is New Dawn. Give us your sentiments as far as the State of the Nation is concerned, the recent rhetorics from the head of state, the deputy president, and also the opposition leader. What is your take on those particular fronts? And we'll be sampling your feedback as we continue with the program this particular morning. Let's begin. Now, President William Ruto has assented to the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2024 that seeks to realign government expenditure to the revised fiscal framework following the rejection of the Finance Bill 2024 that resulted in a revenue shortfall of approximately 344.3 billion shillings. Now, according to the National Assembly, the bill will create a balance by reducing recurrent expenditure while safeguarding critical essential expenditure in the agriculture, health, education sector, among others. And as Timothy Simwa reports, the executive will see at least 139 billion shillings hived off its budget in the adjustments.
At State House, Nairobi, President William Ruto assented to the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2024, considered and passed by the National Assembly on July 31, 2024, with amendments. The bill proposes reductions to recurrent expenditure and development expenditure for all the three arms of government, constitutional commissions and independent offices. The total reductions for the national government is 145 billion shillings, consisting of 40 billion shillings for the recurrent expenditure and 105 billion shillings for the development expenditure. Further, the bill contains a reduction of 3.7 billion shillings for Parliament and 2.1 billion shillings for the judiciary. Major recurrent expenditure reductions include 6 billion shillings reduction for State House and Deputy President, 7 billion shillings for National Treasury, 6.9 billion shillings for various development projects under medical services, while road and transport sector projects will suffer a reduction of 17.3 billion shillings. Despite the fiscal constraints, the bill seeks to safeguard critical expenditures. These include approximately 20 billion shillings to directly support farmers to enhance production and productivity, including 7.5 billion for the fertilizer subsidy, 3 billion for the coffee cherry fund, 2 billion to waive coffee farmers' dates, 2 billion for the purchase of milk coolers, 1.5 billion shillings for milk price stabilization, and 0.7 billion to support sugar farmers. To support reforms in the education sector, the bill has appropriated 18.7 billion for the confirmation of all junior secondary school interns into permanent and pensionable terms, 30.7 billion for capitation of JSS students, including those transiting to grade 9, 23 billion to universities for the differentiated unit cost funding model, 31.3 billion shillings to Higher Education Loans Board for the scholarships and loans, and 17 billion shillings to the University Funding Board for scholarships. In the health sector, the bill has appropriated 3.7 billion for the medical internship program, 4 billion shillings for the primary healthcare fund, 4 billion for the contracted UHC healthcare workers, and 4.5 billion shillings for the community health volunteers, allowances and equipment. The bill has also set aside 3.5 billion shillings toward the enhancement of remuneration of officers serving in various security organs, in line with the recommendations of the report by the National Task Force on Police Reforms. Timothy Simwa, K24TV.
Now, thank you, Timothy Simon, for that particular report. Away from that, Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has expressed confidence in the proposed cabinet, which includes members of the ODM party, saying they will outperform the previous office holders. Now, Odinga said the nominees will offer much-needed expertise, which he says was missing in the previous cabinet. Odinga spoke at Toy Market, where he condoled with traders who were affected by the Saturday fire tragedy that claimed 4 lives.
The Parliamentary Committee on Appointments prepares its report on the vetting of 20 cabinet nominees. Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has said the failures of the previous cabinet forced President William Ruto to seek his intervention. The appointments have caused a rift in the Azimio coalition, with Odinga being criticized for striking a deal with President William Ruto.
Sasa mmeona jamaa walikuwa mashindwa na kazi, wamevunja baraza ya mawaziri, wakaja kwetu kwamba tuwapatie watu. Tumewapatia sasa wataalamu. Mtaona kama kazi inabadilika.
According to Odinga, the proposed cabinet will address the grievances raised in the recent protests.
Pale ambaye kama wanataka kuajiri walimu, manases, maaskari, wanajeshi, sasa vijana wakienda pale, jina yako linaamua kama utapata au utapata. Lakini saila ambaye wanarogota ushuru kwa watu, hawabagui, kila mtu anatoa. Sasa vile ni maneno ambayo hawa vijana juzi Gen Z waliongea juu yake. Sasa haya yote, si yote, mambo yale yote bado yuko pale, na tumesema mpaka yale yote yatatuliwe.
Odinga spoke when he and other leaders visited Toy Market in Kibra constituency today to condole with traders who lost their property in the Saturday inferno that claimed 4 lives. Business owners who have already started to rebuild want the county government to be held accountable for failing to prevent and adequately attend to the frequent fires.
Mwezi wa pili tulifanya public participation na walituambia walitenga 100 million for the perimeter wall. To date, hatujaona anything, tujaona surveyors. And that's why, kama kulikuwa na mtu ambaye anamesea mate hii ardhi, they are still creeping in.
Kuna baadhi wale ambayo wafanya biashara hapa soko sasa, ambao before soko ichomeke, walikuwa wametoa vitu. Walijuaje ya kwamba soko itachomeka? Walijuaje ya kwamba soko ichomeka, ili hali watoe vitu waweke, alafu usiku wa manane soko inachomeka.
Nyinyi mnajua kila wakati kuna mikasa ya moto kwa hii masoko. Kama leo si Toi, unasikia kesho Gikombe imechomeka. Kwa nini tusichukue gari za zimamoto zikuwe stationed hapa karibu na hizi soko, so that kukitokea na kitu kama hii inakuwa ni rahisi?
Sasa leo nimetoa amri kwa gavana, niambia kwamba hii ambayo inazunguka hapa yote ujenzi yake ianze mara moja.
Traders at Toy Market say the construction of a perimeter wall will prevent further incidences of fire. They want the government to take steps to identify the cause of the fire that claimed 4 lives on Saturday. Muriel Adhiambo, K24 TV, at Toy Market, Nairobi.
Now, said to be crafting a new political outfit to face President William Ruto in 2027, now the just ousted UDS Secretary General Cleophas Malala has been positioned to take the same position in the party as it seeks to bring together all opponents of the Ruto-Raila pact while being keen to get the backing of the Gen Zs. Now, our political affairs reporter Joel Chacha now reports.
Speaking during an interview with MediaMax on the Kameme TV, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, whose goose is cooking with an impeachment motion in the offing, weeks after Raila Odinga joined the President William Ruto-led government, is washing his hands on any blame in case the regime fails Kenyans.
I have no capacity to advise President Ruto because he is my boss. Sometimes he listens to me and sometimes he convinces me of his decision. He has brought people who did not vote for us into the cabinet, and he is the best person to explain that. My main job was to ensure that the slots that were meant for Mount Kenya region were retained to ensure that my people are taken care of.
Gachagua, who is having sleepless nights, is however already mending fences with those he offended, making it clear that he's now in the safe hands of the former President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Uhuru, Mama Ngina and Mountain people accepted my apology. Uhuru became my friend, and besides speaking more often, there are things that we are doing together.
His sentiments come just hours after Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka hinted that the immediate former president is part of the new political outfit being created.
Kiambu becomes kwa baba yao, and going forward should be part of the next movement ambayo tunaiunda. Make no mistake, our brother Uhuru Kenyatta is with us. Ako pamoja nasi.
K24TV has now established that Gachagua, who remains uncertain of whether he will complete his term, is positioning the just ousted UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala to take over the same position in the new outfit.
No one consulted me on the ouster of Cleophas Malala. They evicted him at 5 a.m. That is not how a ruling party should be behaving. As a party deputy leader, I wanted to attend, but by 6 a.m. I was told by my people that the meeting was over.
From the mountain, he represents us in that government. And therefore, attacking Rigathi Gachagua is attacking the mountain. Attacking Rigathi Gachagua in his political space as a deputy president is also attacking Kenya.
Let us not think that, in fact, it will be business as usual.
And we will not take it lying, but it has its consequences. Whoever feels that that is the way to go, we kindly tell them, bring it on, we will deal with it.
I just see like an all-out war, especially in the ruling party in UDA. I don't know how things will be. Politically, I don't think he's someone you can easily like just wish away. So if the attempt is made, I think it will be like a very brutal war in internal wars like within the ruling party.
Kalonzo has already hit the ground running, testing waters, accompanied by his new allies Jeremiah Kioni of Jubilee, Eugene Wamalwa of DAPK, Trans Nzoia Governor George Natembeya, and the former Kiambu County boss Ferdinand Waititu, among others.
Tumeachiwa sasa na mwenye tunatembea na yeye, because there must be an alternative to the things happening in this country. Na sisi wakaji wa eneo hili tufugue macho yetu. Sisi tukitembea na Kalonzo tunasema omba Mwenyezi Mungu mapenzi yake yafanyike.
Hakuna mtu ambaye alikuwa ameapa kushinda William Ruto kutakuwa na serikali ya nusu mkate. Lakini kitu moja hivi kile amefanya, ametuacha kwa mataa. Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka, wewe ongoza sisi wote turudiane, tutengeneze ile gema ya mbeleni.
In unison, their common enemy is now the government of national unity, while keen to get a massive backing from the youthful population, popularly known as the Gen Z.
Jana mukae mukijua tupo. Sitaweka upinzani ule mkali zaidi.
Joel Chacha, K24 TV, Nairobi.
Now, on that particular report, listen, the events of the past few weeks, and I believe last month, the last month and the previous month, were supposed to be shaping the political landscape of the country. To some extent, telling the political arena that there's a new generation that wants a little bit of change. That seems not to have worked because new outfit doesn't have you involved in it. Now, away from that, the National Assembly Committee on Appointments is set to retreat and draft its report on the vetting of CS nominees that ended yesterday. Now, that is the previous day. However, in a turn of events, 12 activists have petitioned the court to block the appointment of the 3 cabinet nominees, citing alleged violation of the Constitution.
Invite members to introduce themselves for that.
After the conclusion of the CS vetting process that took place from Thursday last week through to Sunday, a process that was preceded by the submissions of memoranda from the public, the Moses Wetangula-led Appointments Committee is set to retreat and draft its report on the vetting process. Among the issues to be considered in drafting the report include the nominees' oral and written submissions, academic qualifications, integrity, conduct and track record.
You say you have no problem with them, then continue to list their problems.
According to the parliamentary approval procedures, the entire vetting process should be completed within 28 days failure to which the nominees will be considered appointed.
What makes you think that you can serve again in the same docket?
The report, once completed, will be tabled before the National Assembly to allow legislators to debate on the same. In the instance that the committee rejects a nominee and the decision is upheld by the House, President Ruto will be forced to nominate another person for vetting. If the National Assembly approves the entire list of nominees, the clerk of the National Assembly shall notify the head of state in writing within 7 days. After that, the nominees will be sworn in and assume office. With the vetting of 20 CSs already conducted, the remaining 2 nominees, Beatrice Askul for the EAC docket and Attorney General nominee Dorcas Odwor, will be vetted on Friday the 9th in a schedule released by the clerk of the National Assembly, after which the entire cabinet will be complete. In a turn of events, 12 activists have petitioned the court to block the nomination of K24TVLIVE, Aden Bare Duale and Opiyo Wandayi, terming the nomination as unconstitutional. The 12 petitioners under the Kenya Bora Tuitakayo initiative argue that the appointment of Professor Kindiki will interfere with ongoing investigations on the brutality meted on protesters during the anti-government demonstrations. They further argue that the appointment of Opiyo Wandayi is an attack on multi-party democracy, Wandayi having served as the leader of Minority Party before his nomination. Led by Cyprian Nyamwamu, the petitioners also flagged the appointment of Kipchumba Murkomen, Aden Bare Duale, Alice Wahome and Kithure Kindiki, who were recycled from the dismissed cabinet as a violation of the principle of public finance as stipulated under Article 201 of the Kenyan Constitution. Furthermore, the activists want a referendum to be held to determine whether President William Ruto and his deputy should remain in office. They argue that the referendum should be conducted before the end of October 2024. Ian Keitani, K24 TV, Nairobi.
All right, thank you, Ian Ketani, for that particular report. Now, we want to get into the dailies today and focus on some of the news that you're waking up to and give you a reason to go out, purchase one of these newspapers and read stories that are going to shape today's agenda. We want to start with the People Daily, and the top story on the People Daily is DP Ruto must respect Uhuru, and DP rather, that is Deputy Rigathi Gachagua, says Ruto must respect Uhuru. Of course, this is during an interview that he had with all vernacular TV and radio stations that are Mount Kenya affiliated, or rather speak to the people of the mountain. And he says, my phone calls are tapped, associates are threatened. Gachagua says rumored impeachment plans against him were pushed by people close to President William Ruto. This is a story on page 7 of the People Daily, and I just want us to take a look at that and what it is saying, giving you a reason to go purchase this particular newspaper. Now, in interview with Mount Kenya media outlets, the DP says impeachment plans against him were pushed by people close to President Ruto. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has for the first time opened about the tribulations he endured in President William Ruto's administration. In a tell-it-all, wide-ranging interviews with several vernacular radio and TV stations from the Mount Kenya region, Gachagua spoke about his frustrations as the second in command, including that MPs warned against working with him. His phone conversations with friends and allies were tapped, and his business associates were threatened. This is a story on page 7 of the People Daily. You can grab that particular newspaper and get a read of this particular story, whereby the deputy president seems to be going through what his predecessor, who is now the current head of state, went through during the last government, what you call frustrations as the second in command. Another story that is making headlines on the People Daily, and that is relief for JSS teachers, and this is a story on page 6 of this particular newspaper, and it has to do with the President William Ruto assenting to the supplementary budget, and it now says it is now official that 46,000 junior secondary school intern teachers and 1,210 medical interns will be hired after President William Ruto signed the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2024 yesterday. now also set to benefit 153,292 students who will join universities in September after the government allocated 71 billion to fund higher education. This is a story on page 6 of the People Daily. When you get this particular newspaper, of course, you're going to read that particular story. Another story making headlines on the People Daily is anxiety as MPs retreat to pick cabinet nominees, with Wetangula led team finalizing report to be tabled in Parliament to determine the fate of individuals sieved to join Ruto regime. This is a story on page 5 of the People Daily. We're just having a conversation earlier on Nani alibamba nani. That's the thing. In terms of this cabinet secretaries, who exactly do you expect to actually come on board as far as this voting process is concerned, and who convinced the public that they actually fit the bill? That is what we'll be expecting from this particular committee when it retreats and comes back with that report based on the interviews they did and the vetting process. They are going to be able to pick a cabinet that is going to help the head of state push his agenda as far as the better economic agenda is concerned. All right. Another story making headlines on this particular newspaper is I dropped my engineering dream for the love of acting, rather. This is a personality feature, which is an interesting piece. Of course, you can get that particular story on page 25 of the People Daily. Of course, this is Xavier Uwaya brings great raw talent, hardcore adventure, and the reality of the ordinary Kenyan life everywhere he performs. He talks about his career, personal life, and how he maintains his magnetism on stage. This is him. Of course, read that particular story on the People Daily. I want us also to take a look at the Standard and what the top story on the Standard is. Gachagua, I know they are after me, of course, just the same with what we've looked at on the People Daily, whereby the Deputy President in a media interview spoke about his tribulations as the second in command. That is a story on the Standard and also making headlines of this particular newspaper. Another story making headlines is not so fast. Ruto in fresh finance fiasco over spending plant. Now, yesterday, before the ink on the assent on the Appropriations Act had dried, activists were in court challenging its legality. This is a story on page 7. Of course, just telling you that this particular administration will have a hard time when it comes to dealing with some critical issues as far as implementing their plan is concerned, because there's always a lacuna when it comes to matters law, that people will always be moving to court to stop some of the plans they have, citing illegality. Iconic Queen's Hotel reopens after 3 years. This is a story on page 3. Of course, it opened during the weekend, and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was among the people that attended this particular event. And we also have Kamala gains good ground, U.S. poll shows. This is page 25 on stories about the world. Of course, making headlines on the Standard, and also IMF push for private sector roles. This is on matters business on this particular story. Another interesting story that has been making headlines has to do with Bangladesh. Now, the Prime Minister flees after mass protest. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's 15-year rule ended yesterday as she fled more than a month of deadly protests, and the military announced it will form an interim government. That is a story page 20. Of course, drawing as far as none is possible. Now, President William, he's a but so this life and and of course Kalonzo Mount Kenya is also a story that has been given headlines on this particular newspaper, with the issue to do with the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and also just taking a look at what the 2027 elections will look like, or formation when it comes to political outfits. Story, former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka and Trans Nzoia Governor, that is George Natembeya, could benefit from the uncertainties surrounding Mount Kenya politics amid a growing feeling that DP Rigathi Gachagua is being sidelined in President William Ruto's government. Of course, just like we did say earlier, whatever events that are happening right now, could be shaping the agendas when it comes to the nation in the coming days. All right. I want us to take a look at the Star and what the top story on the Star is. This is DP removal plot peak as Ruto Raila close ranks. It seems the photo there on this particular newspaper shows a crack between the deputy president and the president, of course, indicating that their relationship has, gone sour. And yes, of course, we've already covered that on the other dailies. And also there's a story about love for birds that started in harsh Nakuru streets. This is a story that has been making headlines, of course, during the anti-government protests. We did see this particular human being, taking to the streets and, showcasing his prowess with the birds. Of course, grab yourselves the copies of these particular newspapers and get a read on what is making headlines across the country. Now, we do want to take a break here on the program. When we come back, we'll be getting into the conversation this morning as far as the state of the nation is concerned. Now, my guests are already in studio, ready for this particular conversation. You see, we wake up very early to set the agenda for you, have conversations that matter, tell you why it matters. It's very important that you join us, and we thank you for that. My guests are here. Thank you so much for making time, man. You're good? Good morning. Good morning to you. How is this day for you? Let me start with you.
It's an anxious day.
An anxious day? Yes?
I can't complain. Let me watch it go.
Good morning. Is it a good morning for you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Now listen, when we come back, we'll be having a conversation on the state of the nation. A lot of things happening on the political front that are shaping the agenda on matters, politics, and also the 2027 elections. We'll be getting a look at that and what is the most important thing that we should actually be focusing on, because we seem to be deviating from the core issues and focusing on a rift between the head of state and his deputy. Be coming back with that. Continue engaging us on our socials at K24 across social media platforms.